Hello, my name is Justin Bradeup, and today we're going to talk about your right to travel. So, what do you do if this happens to you? What do you do if you get pulled over by an officer, law enforcement officer, and you haven't done anything wrong? Now, let's define that. What is a wrongdoer? What is a crime? Crime is simply defined as when you either injure or threaten someone else or their property. So, basically, I guess if you swerved at someone in the middle of the road, that would be threatening them. If you had a collision with somebody, that'd be an injury to them and their property, most likely. If you're driving drunk or impaired down the road with, under the influence of something, that's definitely, threatening other travelers on the road. And you are a traveler, not a driver, hopefully. The only time that you are a driver, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, is if you are being employed to travel, meaning that someone is paying you by the hour, by the mile, whatever, to go down the road, which is the definition of a law enforcement officer. They're getting paid by the hour to go down the road. So they are drivers. You're not. A commercial truck driver is a driver. A taxi cab driver is a driver. If you're about your personal business and you're not being paid to do it, even if you're going back and forth to work or your job, that's still personal business unless someone's paying you by the mile to do it. So let's talk about the difference between that and get into things. So first of all, I just want to say this because some people will say, oh, well, he's going to get in trouble for giving legal advice or practicing law or something like that. So I just want to, I'm not admitting to doing any of those things, by the way, but I want to read these rulings really quick. And you can use these also because traveling is a constitutional right according to the Supreme Court. It's a natural right and a constitutional right. And so you can use these rulings as well. Miller versus the U.S. says the claim and exercise of a constitutional right cannot be converted into a crime. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of this exercise of constitutional rights. The practice of law is an occupation of common right. So where do we begin? You've been pulled over. The first thing, this little girl's in trouble because her windows are rolled down. She's exposed to the officer. He could, do whatever he wants to her. So the first thing, if your windows work, which hopefully your windows work. If they don't, you're probably going to have to open your door, switch sides of the vehicle or something, explain it to the officer. But you want to roll down the window about an inch or 2 inches, and you want to have this to hand to the officer, something like this document, which you can download. Click on the link in the description. You can download this. So you're going to have your name at the top, not in all capital letters, but it'll tell you how here. And then your P.O. Box address, your city and state, and then here at the beginning, you're going to have to put your name first, the middle, last. Should probably make that red so people know, so it stands out. And whether you're a man or woman, you can change that if you want. I would just have this in my glove compartment, and you're going to want 2 copies, and you'll see why, at least 2, because you're going to have a copy for yourself that has the officer's information on it. Now, you don't have to have the officer's information, technically, but it's not a bad thing, and it'll make the officer think twice because you have his information. So this starts out telling you about your right to travel. Now, the first part here is this part, I think it is here, or is pretty much just written by me. The right to travel freely, it's all backed up by a law down here. So the right to travel freely in this country is a constitutional right and an enable right. Traveling is not a crime unless a physical human being is threatened, injured, or their property is threatened or injured, and you can produce the body of the victim and cause them to appear in court. And that's one of the key things. If they can't produce the body of a victim and bring them to court, how's that going to work? I mean, if the judge is honorable and is following the federal rules of civil procedure and the law, then they have to produce the body of the victim. And if there is no victim, if you haven't hurt anyone or hurt anyone's property, and they can't bring someone in, I mean, an officer could say or try to allege that maybe somebody's house beside the road, you were threatening it by traveling too fast or something, and you could say, well, then produce the body, bring that man or woman in court and have them testify that they witnessed that I was doing this and I was going to hurt them somehow. That makes things more difficult. The state and the United States cannot be an injured party. Okay, it has to be a physical human being, and no government entity can be an injured party. Now, they may try and they may succeed in saying that an officer is an injured party, but technically no government employee can really be an injured party when they're on duty because they're a government entity. For example, if someone is traveling who is intoxicated on a public highway or street with other travelers, they're threatening everyone else on the road and may injure them or their property. Only corporations and government persons are required to have driver's licenses, and persons, drivers, are defined as, and this is because all drivers are persons, and we'll see that later down here. It says so in the Supreme Court ruling. So a person is defined by the USC, that's the United States Code, and the United States Commercial Code, these ones, which is USC 12111 and USC 2-201 Part 27, Part 7 there. This is just a combination of both of them. Labor organization, employment agency, commerce, industry, affecting commerce, corporation, business, trust, estate, trust, partnership, limited liability company, association, joint venture, government, governmental subdivision agency, or instrumentally public corporation or any other legal commercial entity. Okay, and you're not. You're one of the people, right? You're not a corporation. You're not one of these organizations. You're definitely a human being. Okay, so you're not a person and you're not a driver. So we're going to keep going. People who are in control of a vehicle while traveling for personal reasons are travelers. The use of the highway for the purpose of travel and transportation is not a mere privilege, but a common fundamental right of which the public and individuals cannot rightfully be deprived. And that was that you can read the rulings. I'm not going to read them all out to you, where the rulings came from. You can see that here, and you can download the documents that are in the description of the video. The right of the citizen, which, be careful, you don't want to claim to be a citizen, but this is still a ruling you can contain, especially since officers usually don't know the difference between a citizen and one of the people of the United States. And, you know, who knows? That's not a big deal. If you have a driver's license, they're probably going to think you're a citizen, so don't worry about it unless, I mean, I wouldn't worry about it unless they bring it up. But anyway, the right of the citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon, either by carriage or by automobile, is not a mere privilege that a city may prohibit or permit at will, but a common law right which has under the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So basically, and it's a constitutional right. Now, the thing about this is also the reason that Spokane, in the state versus Spokane, which we'll see down here that the ruling came out the same way, is because the city can't prohibit or permit a will. It can't give you the ability. It can't give you a license to travel. The right to travel is a well-established common right. It does not owe its existence to the federal government. It is recognized by the courts as natural right. So this ruling says the federal government has no jurisdiction over traveling. You don't have to get permission from the federal government. Okay, we'll find one down here that talks about the state, whatever state you're in. The right of the citizen to travel upon the highway and to transport his property thereon in the ordinary course of life and business differs radically and obviously from that of one who makes the highway his place of business for private gain in the running of stagecoach or omnibus. And this would include prostitution as well. So if you were the one that was being paid and you were in business of prostitution, and you were operating a vehicle, you would be a driver in that sense. And I believe prostitution's wrong, but the state cannot diminish the rights of the people. Okay. Statutes that violate the plain and obvious principles of common right and common reason are null and void. Okay. The assertion of federal rights, when plainly and reasonably made, is not to be defeated under the name of local practice. So local practice could be a state or a city. That's, again, that's not your problem. That's their problem. Where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no ruling making legislation which would abrogate them. That means that no statutes or laws can hinder your right to travel. The claim and exercise of a constitutional right cannot be converted into a crime. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of this exercise of constitutional rights. Traveler is defined as one who passes from place to place, whether for pleasure, instruction, business, or health. And that's Lockett versus State of Alabama. Travel, to go from one place to another at a distance, to journey spoken of voluntarily change of place. So, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're in a vehicle, whether you're walking, whatever, it is the same. Driver, one employed in conducting or operating a coach, carriage, wagon, or other vehicle with horses, mules, or other animals, or a bicycle, tricycle, motor car, though not a street railroad car. A person actually doing driving, whether employed by the owner to drive or driving his own vehicle. So if you're self-employed, in other words, I guess you're running a business or something. Gang. Now, the reason we include the word gang is because if the officer is not, if they're committing a crime, if they're not doing what's right, then they're part of a gang. Any company of persons who go out about together or act in concert in modern use mainly for criminal purposes, okay? And so that would be a group of acting law enforcement officials that give people citations or tickets or arrest them for traveling without a license. That would be the definition of a gang. Attention. You will be billed for any orders that you give me to carry out. I will not follow any instructions other than orders. Slavery is a crime and is defined as work without payment. Carrying out your orders is doing work, therefore I must be compensated. And this is a new thing that Bill Thornton has done on his website, and I copied his website. It's a new method that they say you can use that works, where you can bill the law enforcement agency. But basically, so when the officer says, "Give me your license and registration," you say, "Is that an order?" And he'll either say yes or no, and you say, "I'll only follow your orders." Make sure he orders you to do everything. That's a big deal, because then that way you can bill him. According to Bill Thornton, you can bill him for your services, and you get to decide how much. Now, the reason you want a second copy is because a copy of this document was served upon law enforcement officer, name of officer, badge number, on the date of, at what time. You can put Pacific Standard Time or wherever you are as well. Remember to take a cell phone picture or video of the officer, gang member receiving the notice, and the officer's badge. Your GPS on your phone should be turned on. If you can make sure to fill in this document, using a blue pen, I should just say make. Oh yeah, if you can, because you don't know if you can. Okay, if you can, make sure fill in this document using a blue pen and keep a copy for yourself. Be polite. Okay, you don't want any red stuff on the thing. You want it all black and then to write in blue. The reason that these red parts are here is just so you pay attention when you're editing this before you print it or whatever. So basically, on this one, this is a declaration. So if you're traveling within the 50 states, then this is executed without the United States, and you can get rid of this part and get rid of the top part. But if you're going to be traveling out, like in Washington, D.C. and its territories, then you're within the United States. So if you're, I guess I should have put inside. Have to update that document, I guess. If you're inside Washington, D.C. and the United States territories, then technically you're within, according to IRS tax code, you're within the United States. It's always better to be without the United States, but you want to answer this honestly, okay? And then, of course, you always sign all rights reserved and waiving none, which goes to the next part, okay? Now, after this is filled out and you sign the bottom and date each page and you hand it to the law enforcement officer and you have your own copy that at least has, the name and badge number and date and time. So you can sign this all later, technically, as long as it's the same day, your copy. Then you should be good to go. You hand this to the officer, and if he orders you to hand him your license and registration, just tell him, say, "I'm a traveler, not a driver," and it's all explained there on the notice. And if he asks you any questions about this notice or what it says, tries to trick you, you just tell him to refer back to the sheet, and that it's all right there, the law's there, everything. for them to read. And the reason it's attention acting law enforcement officer, because you don't know which officer agency you're going to be dealing with, which you might want to write down here too. You know, what agency it is. If it's a sheriff's department or, you know, whoever, you're probably going to want to write that in here somewhere. And these are just notes again. You could, I wouldn't leave them in red, because some places say legal documents can't be in color. So I would change it to black, or just to remove it, you know, maybe just write it on a note and put it with the document so you know what to do. As long as it's declaration, you know, nobody has to witness you signing it, as long as it's a declaration. And you just hand it to the officer. Now, if the officer comes back with a ticket and he's deciding he's not going to follow these laws, then you have something else you're going to do. You're going to dishonor the ticket, and we'll get to that. But before you just get to that point, I want to mention something to you. Okay, most law enforcement officers, even if they're cocky and they, you know, think that they can order you around, which is what I mean, because that's the whole thing, is they got to psych you out. They got to psych you out and order you around if they're that kind of officer, because that's half the battle. You know, if they can psych you out, then you're going to be afraid of them and you do whatever they say, right? But with, you know, I hate to compare them to bullies, but it's the same kind of mentality. If a bully is bullying you and threatening you, and they're in a posturing manner, if you start to fight back, they usually get scared, you know. So, but always be calm and polite with these people. Never raise your voice, I guess. I mean, the only time I would personally, I guess, is if they just would not listen. But anyway, and if they ever read you your rights, if they get to the point where they're trying to arrest you or something, and hopefully you're locked in your car and they can't do that, but if they do, or if they break the window or something and they read you your rights, those are not your rights. Those are civil privileges, and they want you to stand under those rights. So they will ask you if you understand those rights, and according to them, that word means that you stand under and you waive your rights. Okay, and so the correct, you have one of two responses. If you want to be a slave, you can respond and say that you understand. And they'll interpret it differently than the Supreme Court does. Or you can respond to them and say, no, I do not stand under your rights. I do not waive my rights, constitutional unalienable rights. And that's the correct response. Now, what they'll do after you say that, I don't know. I really don't know. Technically, legally, they have to let you go. They can't detain you if you say that, even if you have committed a crime. But you know, the officers and judges and all them, they decide what laws they're going to follow and what ones they're not. They honestly, a lot of them make it up as they go along. But what I'm trying to get to is a lot of officers don't want to fight you in court. They don't want to. They just want to give their tickets out and get on with their thing. And the agency makes money off those tickets, and so does the court, and sometimes the prosecutor. And so, whether it's a criminal or whatever action, you know, and the state makes money off of it. And so if you're more trouble than you're worth, and, you know, some officers actually want to follow the law. Some officers, if you show them the law, they want to follow it. And, you know, sometimes they want to, you know, so, and if you show them something like this, they might think you're an attorney. They might think you're a lawyer too. So, you know, you don't know, you never want to say that you are if you're not, you know, but, well, this is something you can do. Now, if they do issue you a ticket or a citation of any kind, doesn't matter what it says, doesn't matter how it's worded, what you do with it, because they're going to make you sign it probably. I mean, if you refuse to sign it, they'll probably tell you they're going to arrest you. So what you do instead of signing it the way they want you to, and hopefully, you know, they won't get too crazy about it. And you can do this with a blue pen, or if you had a printer in your car like they do, which you probably don't. You could print something like this across the ticket at a 45-degree angle. So you want to make sure that you have enough room to write, and really it only needs to say that it's dishonored. You don't really even need to say in exchange for settlement and closure, but you should use this as attachment to the original, close this matter. Thank you. You should put that. You should put the UCC S3-104. Negotiable instrument, UCCS-503, notice of dishonor, and UCCS-3 502.dishonor. In my case, the amount of the ticket they gave me was supposed to be $124 United States currency. So I was just returning the ticket to them basically. And you sign, you're the settler, you're settling the debt by returning it, dishonoring it, and you put the date when you sign it. And so basically you put this across the ticket at a 45-degree angle, and it's best if this is on the original, like when they ask you to sign it. So you make sure you press down firmly as a clipboard or something. The officer will probably hand you a clipboard with the ticket on it, and you sign all that. Now, if the officer demands that you roll down your window, you just say it's it's rolled down enough, and if you want me to roll down further, you need to get a warrant. But if they order you to, well, technically you still don't have to. I mean, but they may break your window in and arrest you. So, there are some states where people do that. So, anyways, this is what you put across the ticket, and because it's a negotiable instrument, and I'll just quickly explain what that means. You can look up these UCCs for yourself, which you probably should. So, a negotiable instrument is any order that's asking for money. And that's what a ticket is. A ticket is an order asking for money, and it's defined as a check. And you can look this up. Unless they change these laws, or they can't change the rulings, but they can change the laws. And if they do, after I make this video, you're gonna have to look them up again and make sure that they're still the same. But and then the other thing I did, which obviously you probably can't do sitting in the car, but I just thought it was funny, is I printed these laws in like 10-point font on the back of the ticket because it was blank. And the reason I did that is because when they hand you a ticket, it usually has some gibberish written in 10-point font on the back, or something that's really hard to read. And you're supposed to agree to all that and sign it and all this. And see, by doing this, you're not really agreeing to anything. You're just dishonoring the instrument. And you could even sign it all rights reserved and none waived, which is not a bad thing. Some people would say without prejudice or whatever, but I would just all rights reserved, none waived. And of course, you do need to put the amount down here that you're returning the ticket for. Now, in my experience with this, the judge, that I wasn't even notified that there was a hearing. I wasn't notified that they decided to find me guilty and all this, but I did some preemptive defense there. I decided to take a copy because you're only required to, according to the tickets, you're usually required to respond. And so, you can file a copy of this with the court and put you can find out from the clerk what the case number is, who the defendant and the plaintiff are, which is interesting because the plaintiff has to be the injured party. It has to be someone that you hurt. And there is no one, so it's usually the court itself or the state that is the injured party. You'll ask them, and they'll tell you, make sure you get it from the clerk and find out exactly what the plaintiff's name is, and then you put yourself as just a respondent or defendant if you like. And I would just put respondent, I guess, because you're responding. Because if a ticket says you have to respond, that's what I would do. And usually it'll say that for minor stuff, that if you don't respond, that the Department of Motor Vehicles will contact you, and you got 15 days before they suspend your license, right? Well, what I did was, like I said, I made a copy of all this stuff after I had it file stamped with the court, and a conformed copy. And you always want to have a copy of all your papers for yourself. So you bring an extra copy with you when you go in the court, and you have them conform it. So they file stamp the one that they put in there, and then they conform it. And if there was a plaintiff, which there really isn't, but if there was a plaintiff like the prosecutor or district attorney or something, then you want to make sure that he's served with a copy as well. However, technically that shouldn't be necessary, but you can do it anyway just to be safe. And you want to do it by certified mail, or you could actually pay the police to do it, but I would rather do it by certified mail. You can have a third party do it too with a proof of service. They can sign that they served it, depending on the laws in your state. Look them up. But generally that's the way that it works. And so I made a copy of it, and well, I didn't make. I had a copy of it. What do you call it? A conformed copy of everything, including the ticket and this across it and all this. And I sent that to the Washington State DMV and DOL, and I haven't heard back. They have not told me that I have 15 days to pay the ticket. And I never heard back from the court. The court didn't tell me anything. I went to DMV to get my driving record because I had a job I was trying to get, and they needed my driving record, they said. So I went there and I got it, and it said that I was clear and that I had this ticket showing on there, which I talked to some people about that, and they said that's impossible. You can't have a clear record and have a ticket on there at the same time. And so basically, to the best of my knowledge, the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and Department of Licensing has decided not to do anything as of yet about this, and so I didn't have to pay the $124 ticket yet. And they may require that I do in the future, and if I wanted to, I could file a counterclaim against them. And they know I can file a counterclaim against them because I showed that the officer that gave me the ticket was violating some laws and my right to travel as well by pulling me over. One of the things that I noticed was that he was following me too close at night. I mean, I was going like, what, 50 miles an hour? And the officer was following me like for a very long distance. It frightened me because he was so close. I thought he was going to rear end me. And which some legal people would probably say that would have been a good idea to let him rear end you. But anyway, it scared me. And finally, he pulled me over. And it was all about a license plate light being out that I was unaware of. And so anyway, that he broke the law by following me too close at night in an area where that's known for deer coming out, and there's signs posted and stuff about deer, you know, and this sort of thing. And so he violated the law by doing that, and he also violated my right to travel because I don't need a license plate. I don't need a license plate light. I don't need a driver's license. Now, obviously, that's not going to stop the state patrol or law enforcement from pulling me over, but according to everything that you read here, there can be no statutes to govern. I mean, if you're driving at night, traveling at night. I keep saying the wrong word there, but if you're traveling at night, and you know you've got most of your lights functioning, enough of them to where your vehicle's clearly visible, then you're not endangering or threatening anyone. And if you're not, you haven't committed a crime. Now, you know, if you're traveling with no lights on your vehicle at all at night, that's definitely you're definitely endangering somebody. Now, I've seen officers do that when they're trying to follow someone without them noticing. I've seen them turn all their lights out. I've seen them with, you know, fully tinted windows in unmarked vehicles, and their high beams on all the time, and I've seen that, you know. So, you know, they don't really always follow the law, and it's usually really easy. I mean, for some people, it's really easy to point out and say that, you know, this officer was not following the laws, and you know, and so basically, when I filed, I just didn't tell you, when I filed my papers, my response to this, I told them, I said, if you guys will, you know, let the ticket go, then if I don't hear about it, then I'm not going to file a counterclaim against the county, basically, and so they you know, they say there's statutes of limitations, but under 7th Amendment common law, if you stay away from the statutes, you know, or you can use them as case law, but if you stay away from that, there really is no statute of limitations, although they may try to say there is, and they may enforce them. When you go into, you know, I've said this before in my first video on this playlist, I think, or the second one. If you know, sometimes they follow the law, sometimes they don't. It's very common in a court, you know, that a judge will say something equivalent to that the sky does not appear to be blue, or it does not appear to be black, or there are no clouds in the sky ever. You know, they'll say something equivalent to that. They can look at the law and say, well, in our interpretation, we don't have to follow this law, or in our interpretation, we do follow this law, or whatever. There was a picture I saw. Let's see if I can find it on worldtruth.org here. It was kind of interesting. It is about raising a politician as a child, and is the idea that it's pretty much what, you know, judges and politicians do on a regular basis. Let's see if I can find it here really quick before I end this video. I'll just read the comic to you. Let's see, page down. It's got a little kangaroo and her cub. Here we go. Oh no, it's a duck. Two ducks. Okay. So yeah, this was on minds.com. It says, we don't dump the food on the floor. And the child says, I'm not. And the parent says, I'm watching you do it right now. And the little duck says, no, you aren't. And the parent duck says, I'm raising a politician. So anyway, that's what you'll see. Don't be surprised by it. Don't be surprised, when you go into a court or you're dealing with an officer or another official and they, straight out lie to you about what's going on. It's very common. It's less common for officers, I'd say. Officers, are generally speaking are usually more honest and straightforward, and they usually no, this isn't a discredit to them, but they're usually confused about the law, and the reason is because the state and the academies usually don't teach them the law correctly. And so when you use the law correctly, like we're talking about in this video, and you show it to them, it usually confuses them. I told a law enforcement officer one time that I'm refusing to accept any more checks, negotiable instruments from a sheriff's office, and that confused him, I think. So anyway, yeah, and then they just say, and they can. I mean, the law can be the law, but sometimes it just sounds nuts. Sometimes to people it just sounds crazy, and they might just tell you you're crazy. So that's all I'm going to say. Like I say, anything can be used for good or evil. So use this information for good and not evil, and use it at your own risk. And so this video is done with errors and omissions consistent with intent, and use this at your own risk. Like, comment, share, and subscribe.